All right. So let me get started because I'm going to kick this off. We have an agenda and we've got a lot of information for everybody. And I want to be able to have time, and really most importantly, we want to be able to do the Q&A at the end. So I am first. So here, yes, here we have the agenda. So I'm just going to do the welcome, and then I will introduce our next speaker on the agenda. But I wanted to say this. So this is meant to be informative for you all and to give you an idea of the admissions process, and again have you be able to ask questions, and we'll go over kind of the process and how things go. I want to just give you just personal experience, because when I was asked if we would do one of these for the veterans and our military folks, I was very excited to do it. And I wanted to give you my personal experience. Is my father was a medic in Vietnam, and so obviously the military and the veterans have a very special place in my heart. He was in Khe Sanh, and when he returned, he never really spoke about his experience, but he had a really strong desire to be a physician, and that desire was imparted to me. Given his social circumstances, he was never able to achieve that goal, but he still, that dream was instilled in me, and so I pursued that. But I pursued it not in the most direct way, which so I will, as time goes on in the presentation, I can share with you some of the kind of where I ventured and took a very circuitous route. But I ended up eventually becoming a physician, obviously, and now serve as the admissions dean. One of the things that I really was fortunate was that my dad was able to know that I was going to go to medical school. Unfortunately, he passed away just weeks before I started medical school. But the fact that he knew that I achieved this goal that he himself wanted was really powerful for me. I was going to start and at Yale, and he knew that. He did really, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and he did want me to stay close to home, which was Los Angeles. And so he told me that I shouldn't attend Yale because it was not as good a medical school as UCLA, because for him, proximity to family was the predictor of a great medical school. So one of our last conversations that he told me just a few weeks before he passed away was that he was proud of what I accomplished. And one of the things that he said to me, which was very powerful, and I thought about for a long time as I went through, I did 2 residencies. So as I went through my 2 residencies, I thought about this on the long call nights. He said, "I'm proud, but I want you to finish what you started." So I did, and he would be happy to know that I am here today talking to you all and telling you about medical school and why you should come to David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA, because according to my dad, it is the best medical school. So with that, I want to introduce you to Jam. So Jam is our coordinator for the outreach and pipeline programs.
Hi, everyone. Hope you guys can hear me just fine. Let's go to the first slide. So my name is Jam Harley. I am the program coordinator for our outreach and pipeline program office at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA. Been overseeing the programs for the last 5 years. And it's, as Dr. Lucero said, it's definitely something special. It has made so much difference for so many students along the way throughout their journey to medical school. So I guess first things first is there are so many other programs available out there. And I know there's a lot that's specific to military and vets, and depending on whatever circumstances that you may have. And we definitely advise that you do your research and you look up whatever programs that might suit and that might be more suitable to your needs. AAMC website is a great place to start to look up these programs. There's a lot of programs hosted by AAMC, and I'm going to tell you about one of them that we are part of. But definitely utilize those resources that AAMC has when it comes to choosing your career path type of talks, or again, all these summer programs or even year-long programs or research programs. Sometimes the NIH would have a summer version of it or a year-long version of it. That's something that you're interested in. So that's definitely something I just want to start encouraging everybody to do that and to start there. But we can go to the next slide to talk about the programs that we offer at DGSOM. So we have 3 different programs, and I'm going to start by kind of year levels because it's kind of designed that way. So the first program is a program that is partnered with AAMC, and it's called Summer Health Professions Education Program, or SHPP. It's open for first and second year students, and it's about 6 weeks residential program at UCLA, and it's catered towards students that are interested in medicine, nursing, and dentistry. And it's an enrichment program that targets educational and financially disadvantaged students that are interested in learning more and gaining more information perspective about those 3 fields. So that's a great program to start if you're kind of figuring it out of what you want to do and you just need more information about these 3 programs. That's a great program to start. The next program is geared towards medical students only, like pre-med. So it's called our pre-medical enrichment program in prep. It's about 4 weeks program, and it's also in the summer. It's about June to July. And its concentration, again, is in medicine, and it's open towards junior, entering junior, all the way to recent grads, as long as you have not applied to medical school or you're not trying to apply that summer. But it's also similar to SHPP. The goal is to help students from UIM backgrounds and students from disadvantaged backgrounds to kind of get a heads up and to bridge those gaps of things that you wish you knew earlier, but now, now hopefully these programs will be able to provide you with those resources and those informations that could help you elevate your application and help guide you towards the application process, because it's a lot. And Travis will go through that process with you in a little bit. But our third program is called the RAP program, or Reapplication Program, which is in partnership with the UC Postbac Consortium. This is our official postbac program at DGSOM, and it's only open to students that are reapplicants, meaning students who was unsuccessful in gaining admissions to medical school. It's a year-long program, and you have to be a California resident to be eligible for the program. So those are basically our 3 different programs at DGSOM. Again, all of these programs as a whole is designed to help support students from disadvantaged backgrounds and hopefully giving you the resources that you would need to be competitive and giving you the advice and mentorship that you would need to be competitive to apply to medical school, because a lot of students from these various backgrounds, just don't have enough resources available out there. And that's kind of where we come in. And just a quick fun fact, we have so many veterans that were part of our prep program. I just want to plug that out there because there's so many. Every summer, we always have few students that were either in just got out from their active duty or has been veterans for a while, and they needed the guidance because it's either a recent decision or something that they're recently coming back to, especially if they went on tour a few times. But we love those students because they're extremely dedicated and they come in with so much experience in life and so many things. So they definitely bring a whole different level of maturity to the table. But the focus of the program, again, is preparation for your application, career planning, and giving you an overview of all the sciences that you may need to take the MCAT and could help you in medical school admissions. But that's all I have.
The next discussion is going to be applying to medical school, and Travis, who's our admissions operations and data manager, is going to go over this. So I'm going to turn it over to him and have him go through the steps here. If you want to
my
jump
name's
in.
Lisa Lopez, and I am with the admissions office also. So just proceed here. So we wanted to talk with you about all of the steps that are involved with applying to medical school. Because we know that, medical school is certainly a dream for many, but the path to get there is a bit of a long one. So we know that it takes a lot of preparation, and we want to make sure that, that you have all the information that you need, all the steps in the process. So, in applying to medical school, as Jan mentioned already, a great place to look is to take a look at the AAMC website. So again, most medical schools across the nation are members of this association, and there's a lot of guiding resources here that you'll find helpful on just all different types of topics, from just getting prepared to answering questions about applications and many types of things like that. So when to begin applying is always a perpetual question that people ask, and usually you will want to begin applying soon after the application is open. Now, through the AAMC, there is an AMCAS application. That application comes available in early May each year. So you can already start completing your AMCAS application at that time, and then submit it when submission opens, and usually that's at the beginning of June each year. But many candidates will already begin preparing pieces of their applications ahead of time and just getting ready for that.
So, Elisa, I think Travis is ready to jump in.
Wonderful. All right, Travis, jump on in here.
Yeah,
Thank you, Travis.
thank you, everybody. Had something I needed to take care of. So again, Travis McAllister, Operations and Data Manager with the David Geffen School of Medicine. And again, I don't know if this was said already, but we definitely have the chat already going. So if you have any questions during this presentation, please keep them in the chat. Many of you sent questions that Emily sent over to us, and the fortunate thing was many of those questions are already going to be addressed in this presentation. For those that are not, feel free to add them back to the chat, and we will keep going. So you see the slide right now. One of the questions that did pop up was, when should I apply to medical school? And so we have this chart that we created, and we just used, we created this earlier in the spring, and to say, give yourself about, 2 years from the point where you want to apply, that you want to enter medical school. So if you're saying, I want to go to med school in the fall of 2022, I want to be August of 2022, I want to be at UCLA or any other medical school. We're going to say UCLA because this is a UCLA presentation.
Yes, UCLA.
So we want you here. We want you here. So if you're saying, I want to start at UCLA in August 2022, you need to be preparing right now to get your application. And if we can, I want to see if we can go back to the previous slide. I want to point out something from this slide. This AMCAS site is up now, and this site has this is your main lifeline when you're thinking about when you're applying to medical school. And also, especially if you're not, I'm assuming you're on the call because you're thinking about med school, you're not ready to apply right now. But guess what? There is an applicant guide for the 2021 for the current cycle. I recommend that you download this guide. This will give you all the details that you need when you're preparing your application. And even if you're not looking at this year, this will give you an idea of what you can be working on as you prepare for future years. All right, we can go back to the other slide. So you can see here, if you're saying, let's say fall 22, I'm starting med school, UCLA, you need to be gathering that experience right now. Some of you may be in school currently, so your academic experience is taking care of itself. Some of you may have already earned your bachelor's degree or mostly finished with your bachelor's degree. And so the academic part is taken care of. So what else can you be working on? Look at some research opportunities that you can be taking care of. And I know that's going to be difficult during this time because there's limited because of the pandemic. But this is where you can speak with your pre-health advisors and find opportunities to do research. I know in our application, we do have a question that addresses this, so I would assume that many other schools will be, they're aware, because this is one thing about the pandemic. Everybody in the world is going through it. So this is not something unique to just Los Angeles or California. So everyone is affected by the pandemic and the paucity of research and clinical opportunities. And so hopefully, with the hopeful assumption that next year at this time we won't be going through this, you still have time to start building up these research, volunteer, and clinical opportunities. And like I said, with that, once you download the applicant guide, you will now have an opportunity to know what else you can focus on with your application. So I would say a year before you plan to apply, that you plan to enroll, you need to submit your application. The AMCAS application will open in May. And so if you're looking at next year, it will open in May 2021. And then it'll open in May 2022 and so on and so forth. The application will open for that next year, and you can start working on it then to submit your application. And you will go through a whole process that we will talk about in this presentation further, which will get you ready to start medical school the following year. So you can see it takes about a year to 3 months, I would say 2 years before you apply. So within the AMCAS site, there is a special section called Medical School Admission Requirements. We will call this MSAR moving forward. So MSAR is a database of all the participating schools with the AAMC, which administers the MCAT, and this is where you get some of that basic information for each school. So if you're thinking, again, of course, UCLA, right? Let's just say you're thinking about some other schools. You're like, I'm interested in this school. What is this school? What is their information on this school? Dr. Lucero's from UCSF. What is it about UCSF? I want to see what their data is. You will find it here at the MSAR site. And this is where you can compare some of that information. Average GPA, average MCAT, number of enrolled students, other unique details. And so knowing these details will give you an opportunity to maximize your chance of acceptance. I want to point out, I want to emphasize this point where we're talking about average GPA and MCAT, because I know those were two of the questions that we received from your RSVP form. And this will be the one, if no one else has mentioned this, may be the first time you will hear it, and this won't be the last time. At the David Geffen School of Medicine, we use a holistic application review process. What does that mean? That means that we're not looking at a minimum GPA score. We're not looking at a minimum MCAT score. We're looking at every part of your application, and we'll talk more about MCAT as we move forward, and I'll probably say it again, but we will use every part of your application to determine whether or not you are fit for our program here. So these data points are just strictly that. They're data points to give you an opportunity to see where you stand. But if you see that our average is one number and your number is not up to that number, that does not mean that you're not getting into UCLA. So that's something to keep in mind. Next slide, please. So academics is always one thing that we focus on in your application. And so when you're looking at medical schools, you're going to look at a few things. You're looking at the course requirements, and this is something that we will ask for in the application. Now, something else to say about UCLA that is different. We do not have specific course requirements to enter to apply to med school here at UCLA. So you won't, if you go on our website, you will not see, and hopefully, and maybe somebody on my team can post that website in the chat just so that you can see it for yourself. We do not have where you need 2 years of chemistry and 1 year of biology and a year and a half of physics and 2/3 of your. We don't do all of that. We don't do that math on that. We give you a list of core competencies where if you're mastering the competencies and you feel that you master the competencies in a certain group of classes, then that gives you the confidence to apply. And so you will see that on our website. We do not list those competencies. And thank you for posting that link in the chat. And so that's something to keep in mind there. within the application, you will need to address other core competencies for entering medical students. I think there's 15 of them, and they're in 3 different categories: pre-professional, thinking and reasoning, and science. And so you will be able to see that within the application. And I'm telling you, when you download that applicant guide, you will see those core competencies there, and it will talk about those as well. We talked about GPA just a couple of seconds ago. Like I said, GPA, it's a number, it's a data point. It collects the data from what you did in undergraduate school, and in some cases for you, graduate school. It is not a hard stop for us. We do not track minimum GPA numbers, and there is no cutoff for GPA at UCLA. And transcripts. So again, with downloading that applicant guide, it breaks down AMCAS's guidelines for submitting your transcripts for your application, because at UCLA, we only accept transcripts for the application through AMCAS. So when you're submitting your application, you would not send your transcript directly to UCLA. You would send it through the AMCAS portal, and they will deliver the data to us in your application. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, one of the things you will see on that competencies link that we posted is that you must have a bachelor's degree or graduate degree from a U.S. or Canadian institution. There are some exceptions, and they're listed in that applicant guide that I've been talking about. So if you got your degree from a school that is affiliated with an American school, but it wasn't within the United States, you want to check that list to make sure that AMCAS will accept the transcript. Next slide. All right. So an important thing, another important aspect of your application are the letters of reference. In AMCAS, they call them the letters of evaluation. This is a letter written by a recommender that assesses your qualities, characteristics, and capabilities. So listen to that again. I'm going to read it again because this definition of how AMCAS describes a letter of evaluation is important and can help you decide who would be a good person to write this letter for you. A letter of evaluation is a letter written by a recommender that assesses your qualities, characteristics, and capabilities. So you want to find someone who can speak to those the best. You know, at UCLA, we do recommend that when you're sending in your letters that you have 2 letters from instructors. Think about who those instructors are and what they can speak about. So if you're saying, well, I got an A+ in chemistry, I was killing chemistry, so I'm gonna get this professor from chemistry to write a recommendation. If that's the only thing they can talk about is that you got an A+, that may not be enough. So think about that. If you had labs when you were in that chemistry class, and that professor can really speak to your ability to function in those labs, that's someone that you want to use. If you're thinking about any general research that you've done, you want to, and that is an important characteristic of your application, you want to find someone to speak to that research opportunity. If you're saying that I'm heavy into community service and this is an important part of who I am, it's an important part of my application, you want to find someone who can speak to your abilities and your experiences with that community service opportunity. So that's something to keep in mind. Don't just find someone who is there to just say, well, they got an A in my class, so they're good. They got in the top 1% of my grading. That's excellent. That's great. Guess what? At UCLA, you're not going to be alone on that. So we need more in those recommendations. So thinking about, again, science professors, class you took, someone who can speak to your extracurricular activities, principal investigators for research, and you've done some clinical experiences, thinking about a physician who has worked with you and who has seen you provide patient care. So you want to get someone who has seen you in action, not just someone who is going off a transcript and saying, no, they got an A in my class. So let's talk about this MCAT. Some schools are going to be different when they think about how, whether or not they want you to take the MCAT. At UCLA, the MCAT is required. And in general years, we want the score to be within a recent amount of time, within 3 years. And so you want to think about that. If you have not taken the MCAT and you're thinking about medical school and you're thinking about it within the next 2 to 3 years, this is a good time to start preparing for the MCAT. There was a question asked about resources for the MCAT. And I'm going to turn you again to the AMCAT site. If you go to the AMCAT site, they have a wealth of materials there that gives you information on how to prepare for the MCAT. They have I think they have resources for a practice exam there. And again, for those of you who use Kaplan, Princeton Review, when you were studying for undergraduate tests, this is, they still have the same resources there. I would say if you're looking for one resource that will give a tell-all, those are the best resources there that will give you that information. So you get when you think about retaking the exam, you can take the exam up to 7 times in your lifetime. You can take it up at least twice in a calendar year. So that's something to keep in mind when you're applying to schools like UCLA. Take it twice. So you want to, take it twice, and you start taking it more than twice, then, that could be a possible flag for admissions committees, especially if your score is going to be around the same thing. So this speaks a lot to how you prepare for the MCAT. And again, the MSAR site will show you the average MCAT scores for each school where you're interested. And again, at UCLA, we're using holistic. So that number is just a data point that actually AAMC at MSAR, they calculated. We didn't provide that to them. We provided them data. They created the averages. So we do not have a minimum MCAT score that we're looking for or an average that we don't communicate. It's all holistic at UCLA. All right, move on, next slide. I think you can hit the next one more time. There's a picture that should pop up. There we go. So when you're thinking about what matters, how can I stand out in my application, you want to think about that question within these areas. Because all of your experience matters. Your academic experience definitely matters. I will let, and I know there was a question that someone hopefully will ask, I will let our medical school experts like Dr. Lucero and if Kristen's on the call later, they can speak to you about also, they can give their experiences on the non-traditional paths to get there. Like, for instance, if you did not take a science or you did not go to pre-med in your undergrad, they can speak to their experiences on that. I would say, again, when using our competencies, they can give you a guideline of what classes you should be considering that you will need to know once you get to med school. So your academic experience matters in that sense. Your clinical experience matters if you have some. Not everyone's going to come in with a lot of clinical experience, and we're not looking at, again, this is not a checkbox where you need so many hours of clinical, volunteer research, all of that. We're looking at everything together. But if you have clinical experiences, that matters. Your volunteer community service experience matters. Doesn't always have to be related to medicine, but is it related to what kind of person you are? And if you're devoted to community service and volunteerism, so you want to speak to that because it will matter in your application. If you have research experience, it matters. Lab experience, publications, presentations that you've done. Speaking to that in this application matters. And guess what? Your life experience matters. We heard Kristen at the beginning talk about her experiences that led to her getting into medical school here. All of that matters. We talk about the distance travel in your application. And so thinking about what that means, if you had a tough upbringing, if you had a situation where you were involved in and out of the hospitals because of your own medical situations, and that may have been the inspiration for you to want to be a physician yourself. Do not omit that from your application. You want to focus on that. You want to talk about that as well. So these are the 5 things that we will be looking at in your application. Next slide. So then what happens? So let's just say you get to the point where you have submitted your application, you submit your primary application, and now that's one thing to celebrate. Take 5 deep breaths because that's one obstacle out the way. And so then what happens is your application is reviewed by admissions committees. And if that primary application is successful, you will then be asked to complete an institutional application, a secondary application for each school in particular. And this is where you get a chance to further showcase your attributes to the school. So you want to make sure that for each school where you're applying, you understand the mission of that school, because that's what we will be looking for. UCLA has a very unique mission at the David Geffen School. And so we're looking for candidates who fit that mission, whose work and all of their previous experiences are in alignment with that mission. And again, we consider a range of factors. It's a holistic review. It's not just MCAT score, GPA score, not just number of clinical hours that you've done. It's everything. We're focusing on the whole applicant in this review process. So again, there's no disproportionate focus on any one factor of your application. Next slide. So if your secondary application is successful, you will be invited to interview with us. We've already started interviewing for the 2021 entering class. And so depending on when you interview, you have several options to think about. The traditional face-to-face, one-on-one interview with a faculty member. So they will take that opportunity with you 25, 30 minutes usually to ask you questions based on your application. In some places they may be closed-ended where the faculty members have not seen any portion of your application. We have an open-ended where the faculty interviewers have seen your application, so they will be asking you questions directly related to your experiences. In the past, we've had multiple mini interviews. These are case-based. And so you get up to 10 minutes to look at this case, you read the prompt and you discuss the case and perform an activity sometimes with that case. There are opportunities at some schools for group interviews as well. And group interview is one interview candidate to a group of interviewers. This year we are going virtual because of the pandemic and everything going along with it. So we've already started conducting virtual interviews, and our interviews have been in a one-on-one traditional format virtually. Also with AAMC, they have implemented what they call a VITA, virtual interview tool assessment. And so at UCLA, we're using the VITA instead of doing the multiple mini interviews, which were done in person. And so it's a two-step interview process that we have completed. And so far we've interviewed 60 candidates, and we've heard glowing reviews of the process. And I believe the candidates were, again, just another boulder off their backs, because that's one less thing they have to really stress about now. And so you're bringing your best self to these interviews. Next slide. So after all of that has happened, after the interviews, all of that has gone down, now your application moves completely to the in complete form to the admissions committee. Again, that holistic review of each application. And we have subcommittees sometimes that will read through these applications. And then they will start making decisions, making those final decisions. And so we're looking at, for this next class, starting in October, to start issuing those decisions. Those decisions will be starting in October and will go until the class is full. So once you start applying, and you see the excitement that someone is, when they get that news. I think this is probably from match day, but still, the emotion is still there. And I'm sure I have been able to call applicants to let them know that they've been admitted. And yes, I've seen that. I've heard tears. I've heard it all. So it is a valid emotion for an important step such as applying to medical school. So thinking about, why do you want to apply to UCLA? One, because it's the best school, right? We can end it here. I mean, what else do I need to tell you? So I don't need anything else to tell you on that. But one of the things that we want to focus on also is we've started this cultural North Star initiative, the values that guide us. So cultural North Star: do what's right, make things better, and be kind. That's what we're looking for in our next group of medical school physicians. We're looking for those who can epitomize that cultural North Star. In my opinion, and I'm not Dr. Lucero, but in my opinion, that cultural North Star is really even above all those other things. So you're saying, oh, I got an A+, I got a 4.0 GPA, but are you kind to others, right? Are you doing what's right? Are you making things better? That's what we're looking for. So you know, thinking about UCLA, and I think all of you probably on the call are affiliated with UCLA in some sense. So, you know, the philosophy, the people at UCLA, various programs within the med school and beyond, our wonderful community, Westwood Village, Brentwood, and which is just a portion of Los Angeles and of the entire city of Los Angeles. And so you are aware that why UCLA is the place to be. And we want you to continue being part of our community at David Geffen School of Medicine. All right, so let's get into our programs. And I think there's some photos that go with it. One more. Yeah, all right. So there's 4 programs that really break down into 3 degree options. And we'll get into those options a little bit further, but you're thinking about the traditional MD. We have, and then we have 2 combined degree options with the MD, PhD, and an MD master's program. And while I wait for the next slide, I'm gonna grab a sip of water real quick. All right, so we have our 2 traditional medical doctor MD programs. We have the UCLA MD. This is our traditional 4-year MD program. Is our largest portion, our largest option here, where we bring in approximately 118 students each fall. We also have a working relationship with the Charles Drew University, which is historically Black college and university, based in South LA, Carson area. If you don't know who Charles Drew is, look him up. He was very instrumental in medical education, and particularly in the African American community. So if you're applying to UCLA, which in Charles Drew, this is an MD with an additional research component, with focus on providing care to underserved communities. They take in approximately 24 students per cohort. Now, even though there's a lot of education, you know, it is tied in with Charles Drew University. Our Drew students are taking classes alongside our traditional UCLA MD students. So all the classes are happening at UCLA. Next slide. And then you have our 2 combined MD programs, starting first with Prime LA. The LA is not for Los Angeles, which I thought it was at the beginning. It's for leadership and advocacy. This is a 5-year combined program where you're getting your MD and a master's degree. And this master's degree can be with, you know, with the school, any master's degree that you're thinking about. The most popular have been MBA in business, MPH for public health, and an MPP for master's in public policy. The focus in Prime is addressing policy, care, and research in healthcare for the underserved. And so you're thinking again of not only leadership, but being an advocate in your position, and that's what Prime is about. They take in about 18 students per cohort. And then there's the Medical Scientist and Training Program, NMSTP, that works with Caltech. This is an 8-year MD PhD program where you're taking classes at both UCLA and Caltech. You know, this is where you're preparing students for careers in biomedical and social medical sciences, 15 students per cohort. And so you're thinking, if you're saying, I want to get my MD, but also I'm interested in that research component, this is that program. Next slide. And so I want to pull this up just so that you can see. I like having tables, and when I get a few options, I like to say, oh, what's the difference? You know, what's a quick difference between them? And so you pull this up just for some quick differences between the programs, and so you get to see the differences there. And so everything that we've talked about here and the cohort size, but again, all of them bring in our class that we bring in. We're hoping to bring in every year approximately 175 to bring in our next cohort. And these 175 students come from. All right. And so this is probably the last slide, just the joy of our students in the medical school. And so I want to say again, I thank you all for being patient with me as I have emergencies and coming in and listening to this. And again, I want to also, we'll talk about it more in the Q&A, but there's still some questions I'm sure many of you have, so keep them coming in the chat. And with the admissions office, we also have a virtual office hour every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And so I want to point that out. So if you're saying, I still will have some questions and I want to talk with someone in the admissions office, you can email us, and you can also reach out to us in the virtual office hours. So thank you.
Thanks, Travis. So we're going to, at this point, turn it over to Gloria Pineda, who's the director of the Financial Aid Office, and talk about funding and scholarships.
Right. So hi, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Lucero. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys. So what I wanted to tell you guys most importantly is that there's a great office on campus, the Veterans Resource Center, that helps all of you on your journey to school and utilizing your funding. And we have a number of medical students that are receiving some type of veteran benefit, or they're on a military scholarship. So yes, we have students that are accessing those fundings. And when you matriculate and we learn about you, what we do right away is we forward you, or we refer you to the office so that they can work carefully to help you access your funding and to get your funding to be paying your tuition and fees, and also, more importantly, any kind of transition or needs that you may have with regards to having your benefits pay your costs. The other thing I wanted to let you guys know is that we award a large variety of funding, financial aid funding, and regardless of what you're receiving through your vet benefits or through your military scholarship, if there's anything, if you're running short in any way, or if there's a gap between the cost of attendance and what you're receiving from these various programs, we are here to help you apply for financial aid and to receive additional assistance to supplement what your program is paying for. And we have some students that come from a military background, but they may not use their veteran benefits, or they may not have, they may have exhausted those. And so those students will be able to apply for the full complement of financial aid. And so these are the types of funding that are on this slide right now. We have Merit Scholarship, our David Geffen Medical Scholarship. And as she mentioned before, it is a full ride, so it does pay tuition and fees, and then also provides an annual living stipend to cover the other expenses. And our Merit Scholarships do not require a financial aid application. Actually, our students that are admitted all students that are admitted are automatically reviewed for our Merit Scholarships, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. But we also have need-based scholarship, and our need-based scholarship is applied for each year with using our financial aid application. We help our students find outside scholarships, and I'll talk a little bit about that also. We also have institutional loan, DGSOM loan, which is subsidized. Subsidized meaning no interest is accruing while you're in school. We also award loans for disadvantaged students. LDS is a Title VII federal loan, but it's campus-based, so we administer it to our disadvantaged students. And it is subsidized also, meaning no interest is accruing. And then, of course, we award federal unsubsidized direct loan, Grad Plus, and also we assist students with selecting a private loan lender, and we award private loans for those that may need to access a private loan. Everything on this list requires a financial aid application except for our 4-year Merit Scholarships. So again, this is just really quickly the type of Merit Scholarships we offer. We have our Geffen Scholarship, which we have a whole website dedicated to that. And In a little bit, there's a link that I'll send to you, but you can also find it on our website. The Geffen Scholarship is a 4-year full ride, meaning tuition and fees and annual stipend. The LA Care is also one of our full ride scholarships. Tuition and fees for 4 years, and then an additional annual stipend, a living stipend. And the stipends are actually dispersed monthly. So it's almost like getting a paycheck. It's a little bit different than traditional financial aid. And then we have our Leaders of Tomorrow, or LOT scholarship. And our LOT scholars receive their full tuition and fees paid for 4 years. And then in addition to that, they receive a one-time $5,000 research stipend to use towards a research project, or their funding for their research project. Anytime during the medical career, they can contact our office and we fund it to you, we award it to you. LOT scholars tend to apply for financial aid to supplement their tuition paying scholarship and to fill that living portion. Geffen scholars and LA Care scholars can apply for a loan, a small loan, to supplement their scholarship so that their full package of aid is up to the financial aid budget or the cost of attendance. So any type of funding that you access or that you bring in with you, we are able to award additional funding to supplement anything that you're getting, any kind of tuition paying scholarship. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so it's important to mention outside scholarships because many of us have a gap between our DGSOM scholarships or our vet benefits or our military scholarship, and then the cost of attendance. And one way to avoid having to borrow or to reduce that borrowing that fills that gap is to find additional outside scholarships. And we have a scholarship coordinator on staff that works directly with our students, our matriculating students, and also our continuing students to identify and apply for outside scholarships. And we also have created a publication, which we have on our website under outside scholarships, called Pennies. And it is a compilation of outside scholarship agencies that are just for medical students. And we try and keep it updated with the help of our students. And I would recommend you to take a look at it now to look for additional scholarships. Once you apply for financial aid, you can begin to, of course, look for outside scholarships. And then if you get it before you've actually matriculated, or if you're given an outside scholarship before you matriculate, you can simply tell the agency where you're planning on going to school, and then they'll send the scholarship check or the scholarship funding directly to the school, and then we put it in and disperse it to you for them. Next slide. So most importantly, I just wanted to recommend that you take a look at our website. And also on our website is our cost of attendance, which shows the financial aid budgets for each class for the whole school year. And if you're a financial aid recipient, you're already familiar with the financial aid budget or the cost of attendance, but it includes tuition and fees, books and supplies, room and board, transportation, and some additional expenses for miscellaneous expenses. But these are all set costs or cost averages that we use to compile what we call a standard financial aid budget each year. And that ceiling or that budget is normally the maximum amount of money or the maximum amount of your financial aid package for that year. So within it, you may have your vet benefits, you may have a military scholarship, you may have DGSOM scholarship, You may have low-cost university loans. You may also have federal loans, but everything altogether cannot exceed the cost of attendance. And so, however, we can increase the cost of attendance on a case-by-case basis. And those are usually medical and dental expenses not covered by insurance, emergency car repairs. There's a variety of things, childcare. We can increase the budget on a case by case, but we start with the standard budget, and everything should fit within the budget. And so it's important to take a look at our cost of attendance when you have a minute so that you can see what overall costs will be in addition to tuition and fees. And that's about it. I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about things. I thought it might be better for me to answer any questions you may have.
Is this, sorry, Lisa, is this our last section?
This is. So I want
Perfect. Great.
to thank Gloria and Travis and Kristen and Jam for presenting a bit, and we wanted to open it up now to any questions that you may have.
Right. So that's actually been one of the big challenges that we've been discussing and have we actually talked to our various members who that process our applications. As you can imagine, as Travis mentioned, there's a lot of different throughput for the applications. And so it's a very big process. And each of those sections, we have talked about the impact of COVID on that actual being able to shadow, to be involved in community clinics and things like that. So I think until we're able to open up sort of the clinical experiences, and I think it's impacted our medical students as well. I know Kristen can probably talk about it, at one point, even the students that were on their clerkship rotations weren't even able to go into the clinical world. So it's been a big issue. I think, you know, one of the things that you're going to note is that when you're doing your application, you absolutely should talk about sort of the plans that you had and how that you have been impacted on not being able to do it. And then I would keep a list of the places that you wanted to do the clinical opportunities at and continue to reach out as things start to change. So I don't know that much is going to change at UCLA until January. That may be the first, you know, time that you can do that. You know, we do look at longitudinal, what did people do overall? What were they doing, you know, prior to COVID? But we are going to, you know, note that, you know, you're going to have to put, we would advise anybody to put in the applications, you know, what the plans were and what you weren't able to do because of COVID. So what I would do is pull that list back up and start reaching out to them now and ask, you know, when do you think you'll be able to be involved? When can I start? And just so you can have yourself ready to go at that point. Because I do think you're going to want to show intent, and you're going to want to show, once you show intent that you are going to do that, but obviously we're waylaid because of the COVID, then as soon as that opportunity opens up, you can jump in and do that. So that would be my advice. Does anybody else have any other thoughts? So I think that I don't think there's any medical school that's doing them in person. So that's for better or for worse, the expense of flying is reduced. I think the downside of that is that it's requiring people to do virtual, and the benefits of that, although not the flight, the cost is reduced. You also have to have the ability to you know, be at a good wireless, you know, have good Wi-Fi, have good access to video and such. And so we all acknowledge that part. So I think all the schools are doing either virtual, as Travis mentioned, the VITA, which is kind of the MMI, and then the other programs that each place has their own what they considered an in-person interview. They've translated that into a virtual interview. And so they've kept, to the extent that, you know, and we're speaking for UCLA, we've kept it to the extent that we had the virtual interview, whatever, you know, kind of program we had for the in-person interview, we've tried to translate that into virtual. And so obviously we're not going to be able to have the tours and the full day experience, but we've had, you know, different things like showing videos and such, but you'll still have a virtual interview with the 2 faculty, and all the other institutions are doing that as well. Yeah, so we're doing VITA instead of the MMI, and the VITA, I think that's Travis had that up there, and you know, you could go to the AAMC. It's basically it's assessing similar things. It's asking these situational questions.
Right.
So
yeah, I think the biggest thing that I did differently was I applied a lot earlier because of the rolling admissions. As far as like, I retook the MCAT, I changed up my study technique a little bit. Just I used like one of the study preps the first time I hadn't used a study prep. That really helped. And then I studied a lot longer for it. I think I studied closer to 2 months. The first time I just did 1 month. I think still I would recommend studying even longer if you can, you know, 3 to 6 months I think is ideal for studying. My personal statement I think was good from both of those 2 times. I didn't change that up all too much. I think it was just, for me, it was really just applying early.
so comments about that, you know, the process, it's not just the MCAT scores that sort of move you through, you know, getting an interview, not getting an interview. So it's multiple factors. And I think, you know, Travis talked about this. You know, we're obviously going to look at the whole, it's holistic review. And let me just give you a brief overview of holistic review. And it's essentially looking at various factors, not just GPA and MCAT scores. And so we look at, every medical school has a mission, and that mission is, for us, it's, you know, you can find it on the web. And when we review an applicant, we're looking at all the different parts of what we have on the application. So what is before us? And, you know, obviously GPA and MCAT scores are one component of that we're going to look at, but we're going to look at what you've done, you know, personal statement, your letters of recommendation, your road traveled, and, you know, why medicine? And so all of those factors go into deciding, you know, do we offer secondaries? Are we then going to offer an interview after we look at the secondaries, which have more information? And so I think if the issue was not getting an interview, I wouldn't say it was one, you know, I didn't have X MCAT score or I didn't have X GPA. It's a combination of factors. And what you want to do is go back. And I think, you know, Kristen was sort of piecing, you know, she mentioned the things that she assessed, you know, when she didn't get in. It was, you know, did I apply late? You know, what was on my application? Did I present myself in such a way that they were able to glean? We're only going to be able to look at what's presented in the application. And you might want to, you know, ask, you know, pre-med advisors to take a look at your application and say, you know, what do you think did I not say? What do I need to add? Do I need to relook at my personal statement? Did I not have enough, you know, extracurricular activities that showed my dedication, and not necessarily look at just, you know, a score? Because I would say the vast majority of medical schools are looking at applications now holistically. And so I can tell you both from UCSF and UCLA standpoint, they are, and as our other UCs. And I can assure you that other schools in the East Coast are as well. So you need to just take a fresh look at the application and just decide what maybe things that you didn't present or could present more detailed, and maybe things that you can, you know, push forward more with showing your extracurricular activities, or, you know, maybe you need to relook at what your personal statement says.
It's Sham, Dr. Lucero. I think Dr. Lucero basically said everything that I was gonna say too about the application, even if it has nothing to do with DGSOM in general. It's the same advice we would have given for our pipeline programs participants, is to always look at everything else in your application and not to focus on one thing that you think could have been the reason why you didn't get an interview or an acceptance to certain schools. And always do your research about that institution too, of what are the things that you might have in common mission wise, or your goals, or the things that that school prioritizes. And that could be something that you might want to talk more about in your other essays, if it implies, because not everything would match perfectly, but definitely consider everything Dr. Lucero mentioned.
You know, I know there's a lot of, you know, Reddit is one place where people always go to, and they put lots of theories and thoughts on, you know, what am I supposed to do? How do I become a competitive applicant? The people that are evaluating your application, and this goes for UCLA and again, other institutions, you know, we're looking for individuals that have a passion for medicine and the other part of medicine. It's not just doing the practice of medicine, but that want to be medical educators, or that want to go and work in community clinics, or who want to innovate, do research projects, or those that, you know, want to do global health. And, you know, the list is on and on. So um, you have to be careful to not think that you have to check various boxes and, okay, so next I'm going to do X amount of extracurriculars, and then next I'm going to go work in a research lab, and next I'm going to go, because we all see that and say, okay, but why, what are you as a person doing? What is it, why medicine? What are you passionate about? I would say if an individual is really passionate about research and says, I want to look at this disease, then you have your journey. And yes, you should absolutely be doing research, and you should be moving in that direction, and you should get involved in a lab, and you should, but if you're like, I don't really want to be, you know, the next innovative researcher that's NIH grant funded, and, you know, don't do that, because it's going to be obvious that that's not what your passion is. So I think, again, you know, to just say, take a step back and ask yourself, why do I want to do this? And I agree with Kristen, it is the most amazing profession. And of course I am biased, and, you know, all of us here are biased that have talked to you about it. It is an amazing field, and we can all tell you why medicine is such an amazing career, and why, you know, we would not see ourselves doing anything else. So you need to think about why it is for you, and what makes you want to do it. And then whether it's working in community clinics, working in global health, looking at health disparities, you know, doing bench research, or, you know, doing clinical research and policy, then that's what why you want to do it. And then go in and pursue that. And it's not going to matter that you didn't do research, unless that's what you're passionate about. So I'm going to read you the mission, and as I read it, it's a little long, but I think it's important, because I think it really gets at, you'll understand as you hear it, kind of what resonates with you, and will help you guide you when you think, why medicine. So the mission of the medical education program of the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA is to prepare graduates for distinguished careers in clinical practice, teaching, research, and public service. Recognizing that medical school is but one phase in a physician's education, the faculty has worked to create an environment where students prepare for a future in which scientific knowledge, societal values, and human needs are ever changing. To meet this challenge, our graduates have the skills to provide quality care for their patients, to contribute to the growth of scientific knowledge, and to continue learning throughout their careers. They're involved in a service to the community and demonstrate a firm commitment to the humanistic, ethical, legal, and cultural aspects of medicine. We believe that a diverse student body is an integral part of medical education and is essential to the development of patient-centered care. So that's really the medical education program and the mission of the medical school. And you can see as you heard that there were really key parts to the mission. And when we think about the application, we're thinking about what, there is, can the applicant do the educational part and take the tests and move at the speed that they need to, but that's only one part. Really, what are they going to do with this knowledge and this opportunity, and how is that going to make society better and take care of the healthcare needs of a population? In particular, I think about California and the diverse population that we need. We need physicians in the urban areas. We need the physicians in rural areas. We need leaders in medical education. We need leaders in research. We need leaders in community-based programs. And, we need leaders to go out and work with the veterans. That's another area of a population. If you've all been probably following, as you, I'm sure I have, you've seen what's going on in the VA administration, and how do we provide the health care to our veterans. And that is another component, and you all have that unique experience of being a veteran and understanding the issues that the veterans face. So think about that and harness that and understand, where you fit in to that community that you already belong to.
So first and foremost, like that scholarship was a huge, one of the biggest reasons that saved me like $350,000. But another thing, during my interview there, I felt like it was a very, that they valued me as a person, not just, for the good grades, not just not just because I was a veteran, but they valued me as a whole person, and they really valued my personal experiences. It's a very diverse school, which I appreciated. And living in LA is an amazing place, as you're probably aware of. Also, I think like now that I'm moving forward for applying for residency, being part of the UC system is going to help me to get into the other UC schools. So I think that's also something to consider.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Kristen, just to, it's, you want to get into, the top medical schools, because when you go to residency, for better, for worse, they know the quality. All the UCs know UCLA and UCSF, they know that the caliber of students, and it's a very much a no-brainer for them, and it opens up the doors to a lot of competitive residency programs. My understanding, and you all are in unique situations, there are students that actually are not enlisted, and then once they go into medical school, they get enlisted with the military, so that they pay for their medical school, but then they sort of owe time, and presumably they will then, their residency can be done a couple different ways. They can do residency at another, residency program that's not affiliated with the military, or they can do residency within sort of the military structure. The decision of what residency they can do is I don't think entirely their choice, and that sort of was been my experience from colleagues who, wanted to do a particular training program, but obviously the military may have a preference of who they need more in what specialty. So I don't know if that has changed. So I think if you have a particular area that you want to go into, it may not necessarily a particular specialty of surgery that you want to do. I don't know that's 100% guaranteed if you are if you go that route that I mentioned. But what I don't know is you already are a veteran and how that works. And if anybody else wants to add to that's I've exhausted my experience on what I understand of that.
Yeah, I think we just refer to one of the recruiters to talk you through that process, because it's not something that the university has like a role in. So it's definitely like would be likely driven more by the military, less by the campus or the university.
You know, not every medical school looks at it's not sort of a cookie cutter. Each medical school kind of evaluates things differently. There is, I think, the combination of, and again, it's the holistic review, the combination of the MCAT score and the GPA is only one factor. I think, you know, how one is valued, extracurriculars, letters of rec. I will tell you, again, it's sort of, you have to have an overarching theme of your application of why medicine, and where you fill in those pieces are, you know, extracurricular activities. So I think if, you know, if someone is involved in and wants to go work in a community health setting as a physician, maybe they want to be a family practice physician in an urban underserved area or in a rural area, then you know, I'm going to look at their extracurriculars and say, what have they done, you know, in that. I'm going to look at their personal statement to get a sense of why medicine, and that is going to drive, you know, okay, they want to work in an underserved area. Let's say it's an urban underserved area. What did they do in their extracurriculars to do that, and how long did they do that? Did they work for a community health clinic for a year? You know, what did they do at that community health clinic? Did they take on more responsibility at that community health clinic? Being more of a leader in whatever role that they had there. And then what are their letters of recommendation? And I think Travis talked about this. You know, you want to get letters of recommendation from people who know you well and can talk about your communication, your ability to work in a group, your you know, kind of a sense of leadership qualities that you have, you know, and you know how you collaborate with people. And so you can get whatever you're doing and whatever you're passionate about, you can get those letters of rec from the various people. I think that's, you do want to have, you know, somebody that can speak to your scholastic ability, but you do want to have really someone that's going to talk about, you know, if I looked at an application and I saw that somebody was, based on their personal statement, was interested in community health and working at the urban underserved, and then they did a year at this clinic, but I don't see a letter of recommendation from that person that was in that clinic, that's a red flag to me. Why did they spend all that time but not have a letter of recommendation? We don't need to see letters of recommendation from the Nobel Prize laureate that, you know, you may have worked, you know, a month in their lab and they never met you, because that doesn't matter to us. They're not going to know much about you. They're not going to say anything. It's not, you know, oh, well, that's a Nobel laureate, so we're going to take this person. That's not how that works. So each of these things is not, you know, weighted, one is weighted more than the other. They're part of the whole package. And then once we look at all of that and we've invited you for an interview, we're going to want to get to know you as a person and may ask you to speak more to something. And what we're looking at is, you know, medicine is not just a science. You know, you're not going to be put into a little room and nobody sees you. You're going to be interfacing with a team of nurses, a team of staff members, a team of other physicians, other specialties. You're going to be interfacing with patients from all different backgrounds and cultures and experiences. And so we're going to want to know that you can relate, that you have empathy, that you know, can communicate with someone, and and can work collaboratively. So that's what the interview part is, and that's an important point. So I think, you can have an applicant that's published first author papers in Nature and Science, and if they can't communicate, and don't show in an interview that they have a sense of relatability, compassion, empathy, then that's not, that's not somebody that's going to make a great physician. Actually, a lot of our applicants and medical students were not pre-med majors. Many people, and again, that goes to the diversity that we want to have. I can tell you, I went to Cal State Northridge. I was a psychology major, and then did general experimental psychology, and did with the focus on social psychology, and then decided to go to medical school, and I had to do all my prerequisites. At the time that I applied, I think the vast majority of medical schools had prerequisite. You had to do these classes in addition, obviously to take the MCAT, and to take the MCAT, you needed to sort of know that those have some understanding of those classes. So you kind of had to do it anyway. So I ended up taking all those courses in kind of a post-bac way. I did it while I was still a graduate student. So I would say that my experience was that people were very interested in talking to me about social psychology. I thought, I was going to be, they wouldn't be interested because I wasn't a basic science or pre-med major. They were absolutely fascinated by the research that I did, the work that I did, because it was, so different. And I will tell you, the work that I have done, that I thought, oh, I don't know, I did my master's in this and it's never going to come of use in medical school. It absolutely has, because the work that I did in social psychology is really at the forefront of equity, diversity, and inclusion. All the things we talk about with stereotype threat, microaggressions, implicit bias, those are all social psychology concepts that I learned about, and that I researched on. So you never know what you're doing, and how it may not, you think it's not related, but it is, and it will come into play. There is a resident in the anesthesia department at UCSF, where I just came from, who was a linguistics major, and he is so fascinating to speak with. I mean, he's so passionate about linguistics, and he has, as he speaks to patients, he understands patients who are not primary English speakers. He understands, their language better than most people who are native speakers in it, and is so fascinated and compassionate and so interesting. And I and he's an amazing anesthesiologist, and has such a unique background, that we all, I mean, there was no question that he would have gone to medical school, and he's at one of the top anesthesia programs, like, because there is such a depth and breadth to him, not just medicine, but he's a phenomenal physician as well. So I would say, that is not something that is a detriment. It's actually a quite positive thing if you have a different major. Yeah, so practicing is a really good thing. Practice with somebody that doesn't know you well, and give them maybe your application, that personal statement or something, that so they're like, you the most way you can simulate how they're going to read about you and learn about you. Most people don't like to talk about themselves, so the way that you can approach it is, think about a story about something you've done that would impart kind of who you are as a person. And if you tell it from the perspective of the story, you're not really saying, oh, I'm this great person that did. think about it as a story that you're just simply telling about a situation. And that story, and this is where I would ask somebody that, that knows you well before you meet with the person that doesn't know you well, that you're about to say, what is it that are you think are positive attributes about my, about me and my person, and they could say, yeah, and could you remind me of a story? Or if you have a particular story, say, hey, I want to talk to you about this story, and if I tell you this story, what do you think you get out of? And I think when you separate it from you talking yourself up and really using it as a story, um, you actually can glean so much about somebody in that. I mean, I think Kristen, I'm sure, did not tell the story today that about herself to impart, what an amazing, resilient person she is. But telling that story, I got so much about who she was and what she had gone through and who she is as a person. And so if you think about it in telling a story, it separates you from that. So you don't, if you're uncomfortable about talking yourself up, it makes it easier. If that kind of makes sense. Is that, yeah. I think when you tell a story, when someone says, tell me about your strengths, I think if you can give a story of a situation, that's actually going to help you impart that strength. I mean, they can make that leap. So think of it in the way of the story, because you don't want to list out things. I think, what are we looking at? We're looking for people that, as I gave you, the resilience, perseverance. So think of a story where it was clear that you showed resilience and perseverance, and tell that story. And then, you add at the end of that, if you need to say it, the perseverance. But I mean, again, sorry, Kristen, I keep using you as an example, but it was just, such a great example of, she never said in talking to you all that she showed resilience and perseverance, but we all gleaned that. We all took that away from that story, right? So she didn't have to say it. It was there. And an interviewer is going to know that. So I think, a challenge, a weakness is always hard, because, you have to show humility. But when you think about what are the things that you struggle with that are hard for you, one of those is, I don't like to talk about myself. It's really hard for me to talk up myself, and I struggle with this. And so, I'm hard on myself about that. And, that's your struggle, and so therefore it's, I undersell myself. That's a weakness, right? I think many of us struggle with that, especially those of us who are first generation, I think, and maybe have, come from places where, that wasn't culturally, for me, it's not something that we brag about. That's not what we do. But there are definitely people that are really good at it. and sometimes they're so good at it that it's so obvious and it's annoying. So I wouldn't think that it's a detriment to you to not, but think of it as telling a story. Everybody loves to hear a story.
I wanted to give a special thank you to Emily Ives for arranging this session today. We really appreciate that, Emily, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. And then for all of you who have joined us here today, thank you for taking the time. I know this is, considering medical school is a big decision, and we hope that we were able to shed a little bit of light on that today.